Hey gang, Ted Gravlin with the TEDcast for today. So, I've been noticing a lot of companies that have been talking about hiring salespeople, how to do it, what to do, how to set your company up for success with that. So I'm going to talk about today the rules for salespeople. Now these are my rules. They're not necessarily the only way to do it, but after looking around for 30 years in this industry, I've seen what people tend to have in common that are successful, and this is my list that I've got for that. Now there may be a couple of things people can make an argument about this, and I'm not here to argue. I just know that this works really, really well though. So let's talk about what the rules are and like how to set your company up for success, because a lot of times it's, I'm kind of gearing this towards a company who maybe the owner's been doing all the sales and he's growing a little bit and you're trying to hire your first salespeople, or maybe you've had some salespeople and it's not working out as well as you want because you maybe messed it up in the past and you have to just kind of revamp how your system works. Okay, so the first rule is, how do they get paid? And you got to pay them 100% commission. If you put somebody on salary or something else like that, at least long term, what tends to happen is they're going to burn through leads. And it's not because they're bad people. It's just the human nature of, hey, I'm getting something anyway. And that's when the excuses start to come up more often than they should about, oh, that was just a bad lead, or, oh, they're going to get back to me, or whatever those things are. If you put them on 100% commission, and if they don't sell something, they don't eat. And, the idea here is not to sell something to people who don't need it. But the fact is, if you get salespeople who are just letting people go off and let your competitors sell to them because they're going to go get multiple bids or whatever you're going to do, if your guy didn't close them, they need to close them if they want to have a paycheck. So you got to put them on 100% commission. Now, having said that, you might have a period of time where you're training someone for a couple of weeks or something. Say, hey, the first couple of weeks you come in here, I know you used to sell, I don't know, aluminum siding or something, or whatever they used to do before, and we're going to train you to do this, and you may give them some per week for a little while, but then at some point you got to cut them up and say, after that training period or after this period of time, you're going to be on 100% commission like everyone else. So I've seen all kinds of crazy schemes of like, oh, I pay $300 a week plus 5% commission, blah, blah, blah. And at some point, that doesn't work really well. I'd rather see them get a higher commission, 8, 10, 12%, and have zero on the draw against that. So there's also draw against commission. Again, don't like that one either, because for obvious reasons, suddenly they have a really good week in summer, but they're still paying back their draw from when things weren't so good. Bottom line, put them on 100% commission. You'll thank me later when you do that. And what's funny is, you say, I'm going to lose all my guys. Yeah, you'll lose the bad ones. The best salespeople, they want to be on 100% commission with a higher commission. They don't want to be on low-level expectations. The superstars want to do a good job. Okay. Next thing is no calculating prices. And this is when I see, I don't know why the owners seem to think that this is the way to do this. But you cannot have a salesperson that's not you go in the house and be sitting in the house and calculate a price and that kind of thing, and like, oh well, let me get out my calculator, start adding stuff up. Part of it is they're going to screw it up. They're not going to know your margin. There's something wrong with it. They're not going to understand how the business really operates. And even if you give them formulas and stuff, there's a couple of reasons why it doesn't work. First of all, it just hurts your business because I think there's a misconception where every single job is supposed to be custom priced so it can be the lowest possible price for the job we're looking at. Like, oh my gosh, this one didn't need a pad because it was already there, so we can take $25 off or something. It's like, it's ridiculous. Just assume the jobs are similar on the average. Kind of like a restaurant. If I go to a really nice steak restaurant, there's a price on the menu, and they don't let the waiter get back to me with a different price, or, oh, you don't want the salad that comes with it? Well, then we'll take this off. It's like, no, it's the price for what it is, and that's what you're getting. Bottom line is, you got to don't let them calculate price, because they're going to mess it up. And secondarily, there's a lot of homeowners that if you're sitting there calculating a price, they get real nervous because all you're doing is adding stuff up and the price keeps going up in their mind. It does, and they start to wonder if you're calculating a price that would be consistent with what you might give someone else. Like, am I getting a good deal? Does he figure it out a different way for someone else? And then they have to think about it, and they want to get back to you and all this. But when your price is on a kind of a menu thing or something and you can show it, then you're going to be a lot better off. You're going to have some menu pricing, and which just kind of leads us into the next one. But effectively though, do not let most salespeople run around and make up prices, because let's say you had two or three salespeople and they're each giving a different price for the same thing because they're figuring it differently, or you're allowing them to say, like the pad example, oh, this guy threw in a new pad, this guy charged him for a pad, this one didn't even notice the pad. So at some point you're shooting yourself in the foot for consistency for your business. You're not really running a process, and you're kind of letting the inmates run the asylum if they're the ones with the calculator. Because if you know me at all, you know that I know that the numbers of your business are your business, and you don't want somebody else contributing to how that's going to be successful or most likely fail because the numbers are wrong. So don't let them sit there and calculate pricing for every job. They got to sell from a price book. You got to have some kind of a price book that you have designed that is going to have something that they have a resource for to say, hey, how much is a 3-ton 15 SEER, whatever. You opened up and there it is. It's the price here is right here. Here's all my 3-ton systems. Here's my pricing for those. The customer gets to pick one of these off the menu. You got to have a price book. And if you don't, you're really, really hurting yourself in the sales process and for the success of salespeople in general and the company as a whole. What happens when you have a price book that's done where you've figured out the prices ahead of time, you figured out the margins, you figured out the overhead, you figured out all that stuff because you know your numbers. If you figure that out, all you do is get more successful, because you tend not to undercharge on jobs. And I know we've all probably done it, like, oh man, I should have charged more for this. This one's a pain in the butt. And when you're trying to cut it to sharpen your pencil and cut it to the nth, it doesn't work very well. So you gotta sell from a price book, and you can't calculate prices in the field. Third thing is, when do they get paid? Well, they don't get paid when they sell it. They get paid after the company gets paid when funded. So that means, like, if they sell it on Friday or they sell it on Thursday and Friday's payday, they don't get the money tomorrow unless you've installed it the same day. They get paid the next pay period after the customer check clears, after their credit card clears, after the financing fund gives funding to you. After the company gets the money from the job is when they get paid in the next pay period. So I know you're going to have guys, oh, I sold this, can I get an advance? Nope, because you're going to end up situations where a customer canceled, moved, the job moved out to next month or something. Here you already paid the sales guy. No, it doesn't work that way. When the job is complete, job gets funded, job gets paid, because part of the salesperson's job is going to have to be to follow through, make sure the customer's happy with getting the install date done and all that stuff to make sure it happens. Now that doesn't mean that they're necessarily the one. You may have an office person who's in charge of scheduling stuff, but your salesperson should have a vested interest in following up to make sure that, hey, I talked to Mrs. Jones, she bought a system, because who's she going to call when she has a question? She's going to call the person who sold it to her. And if, your salesman says, I don't know when it's supposed to happen, it's not good. So you're going to have processes and procedures in place so that he has a way to be involved in the process through the install, so that the customers want to pay you and all that stuff. So paid when funded. Now here's the one that kind of people get screwed on. It's going to get worse before it gets better if you're first starting out with salespeople. Let me give you an example of that. Let's say you're an owner, you've been doing it for a few years, you know how to sell, and you've got a couple of installers or helpers or whatever now, and you've kind of built it up, but now it's time for you to finally hand your sales off to some other folks, whether it's your service techs or whether it's a higher salesperson or whatever, and you know your numbers. Man, I close 60% of the calls I go on, I close them at this rate, I got all this, I know what happens in my company. Well, that's your numbers. When you hand it off to somebody else and you're still inventing this process and that, for a little while, it's going to get worse before it gets better. So if you were at 60%, you're going to start getting 35, 40% for your company, and you have to know that's going to happen. So what a lot of guys are doing, that's really kind of a mistake, is they're just handing off to somebody. Here, now he's the sales guy. Thank God I don't have to do it anymore. It's like, no, you're probably going to have to still run some calls. So let's just say you're running 10 calls a week yourself. You're closing 60% of those. You're closing 5-6 jobs a week. You're running 8 to 10 calls, and you suddenly hand 8 to 10 calls to some other guys, and suddenly you're only closing 3 and 4 jobs a week. Well, why is that? You're going to have to still run a few calls yourself. You're going to have to take a couple of good calls that you can close, go out and close them just to make up the difference, because your numbers are going to get worse before they get better, because the whole thing is an adjustment for your business. Now that doesn't mean it's always going to happen, but don't be surprised. So you're going to have to just kind of plan for the fact that things are going to be, the numbers are going to take a little nosedive in the graph, and then you're going to build it back up as we train our people better and they get more experience in that. They'll build back up to what your numbers used to be if you're heading for that. You want to head for 70-80% even, because they don't have anything else to do except get better at this, right? But again, it's going to get worse before it gets better. That's pretty common, and again, just plan for it and say, well, what am I going to do about that? If I'm used to having 5-6 installs a week and I can't start dealing with 3 and 4, so I got to make up a couple extra. Well, then what you do is you just say, I'm going to take a couple of calls myself every week. I'm not going to do 8 and 10 like I used to. I'm going to do 3 or 4, because out of 3 or 4, I can close 2 or 3 of those and fill in the gap that's in there, right? So your business doesn't suffer. So that's what you do about that. And then the bottom line is you got to have a proven process. You have to have a way that we sell around here. This is how we do it here. We don't just go out there and just jawbone people and talk to them and figure out if they're going to buy or not. We actually have step 1, step 2, step 3. This is the way our company does it. The reason why you have to have that process is because how in the heck are you going to hold anybody accountable to doing something if you don't know what it is? So you got to say, this is the way it is done in our company. This is how we do our process, because if someone's sales were doing good and all of a sudden they take a nosedive, well, it's probably because they're skipping a couple of steps. And if you don't even have steps, then you don't know what that is. So you got to have a sales process involved in there. So the first step for all of this stuff, if you really think about it, is going to be building price books and getting on commission and stuff like that. Getting on commission is super easy. Just make a decision. Hey, we're on commission starting tomorrow. Okay. Building the price book and calculating prices for a lot of guys is tough. So I'm actually running a seminar on business planning, which is what we talk about here, how to build your numbers and how to plan out your growth and how to get, what's your overhead and that kind of stuff. I'm actually doing it for free. It's happening Saturday, May 1st, so a couple days from now. So we're going to run that. It's just for free. It's at noon Saturday, noon Eastern, and just going to be Zoom call online. You can sign up for it. I'll stick a link here, so if you guys want to participate in that. But what we're going to talk about is how do you set those price books up? How do you figure out your overhead? How do you figure out how to create your margins and stuff to build the price books, what they should look like, that kind of stuff. And of course, more stuff because it's business planning. So it's how do you plan for growth and how do you budget your stuff. So we're going to talk about that Saturday. That's a big help. Again, free, no charge. Again, I'll put a link here, below to show you guys how to register for it. You do have to register because otherwise I can't send you the link for the Zoom thing, so you gotta send me your email address. And then of course, how do you pay when funded? This is an easy one. Just decide. We're not going to pay you till after we get funded. Getting worse before it gets better. There's nothing you have to do with that necessarily up front. Just realize, hey, we've been selling this many jobs with this many leads, and hopefully you're tracking those numbers. And you just have to realize when I track those, it's going to be up and down until you get it smoothed out. Companies who've been running sales folks for a long time have a track record. They know what it's going to look like. So just telling you, if you've never done it before, realize your track record of how you think it's been going is going to change. It's going to fluctuate. All right, and then of course have a proven process. That's going to have to depend on what is your process, and part of that would be start figuring out how it is you actually get people to say yes right now. Is it because you give the lowest price? God, I hope not. Is it because whatever reasons they have for doing business with you, is there a step-by-step thing you can say, hey, whenever this happens, and this happens, and this happens, they always say yes. Ha! Okay, once you know what that is, then start doing it on purpose, right? So, not hard to do to figure that out. So anyway, that was rules for salespeople, my rules, and there's like 6 of them here. So that's what I would notice to be the best thing to do. And again, if you want to do the seminar on Saturday, again, it's free. Just go ahead and click, and we'll talk about some of the stuff that's more complicated, because I've already been going like 14 minutes here. I don't have enough time to walk through how to build an entire price book on a short little video TEDcast. So go ahead and click the link if you want to, and we'll talk soon.